The Yankees come in at 71-60. They won last night. They had a real good game against the Washington Nationals. If you were wondering who the biggest Yankees fan in the Calumet region is, he happens to be sitting here right now, and that's Damien Rico. Damien, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Jed?
You know what? They've lost a lot of close games. The Yankees have. And
sure
that's
have.
not good. They usually win those games.
They
and
do.
I'm sure you're staying up late when they go to the West Coast and listening and watching to them.
I do. Watch every day.
But I still wouldn't want to play them in the first round of the playoffs because they have so much power.
They're very daunting. That lineup is very daunting.
How you been, man?
Good. Really good.
So he hosts a hospice show and has been there for a long time. But he has a rather long resume. And people don't know that about you, right? You worked for the city of EC for a while?
Yeah, for a long time. I think since I was 18 years old all the way till I was about 30-some years old.
And then you worked for the Times?
The Times for 10 years, yeah. And then I'm here.
And then you went to hospice.
In the area.
You know, we had, I know you'd been talking with Adriana about doing some sort of podcast. I don't know where that is. But I think that's the general topic of talking about like end of life issues. That wasn't something you knew before you went to hospice, was it?
Not at all. You know, like a lot of people that I've talked to and met through my journey, it's facing it yourself. The realities of having parents that are getting older and needing care, and nobody wants to talk about that, especially in our culture. You know, the Mexican, the minority culture, we don't really like to talk about end of life and planning and all those kind of things. And you know, nursing homes is kind of a horrible word when you're a kid. That's the one thing that they instill in you is you better never send me to a nursing home. And so we don't think about those kind of things, and at that age. But as you get older and you understand, I think the world's changed a lot. It's evolved. People have embraced palliative care and end-of-life care, and they understand that, you know, it doesn't have to be for older people. It can be 50s, 60s, you get an illness, and you need some care that you didn't think you needed along the way.
You ever think you'd wind up doing this?
I did not.
I mean, it kind of does go against your culture in a weird way, right?
Well, you know, that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate and empower folks, and I think that's the only way to do it is by sitting there telling your story that people can relate to. You know, I know a handful of people. I have grade school friends that have reached out for their parents or for their loved ones.
Heck, we've reached out to you twice, man. Yeah. And we've used your services, and we appreciate that.
And it's one of those things that you just really appreciate, but you don't think about it until you need it. So
you have a little bit of history with WJOB, right?
Yes, for sure.
Tell us about it.
Well, you know, we started... I always tease you a little bit because when we first started at the City of East Chicago, we used to record everything. And I remember you and the mayor used to tease me because I would always be dressed up. And it's like, you know, it's radio, right? And I'd say, well, it's radio for you, but we're recording it and putting it on our public access channel. And so we were podcasting before podcasting was cool because, you know, not everybody could wake up at 7:30 in the morning when we had our slot. So we would play it throughout the day so they can see it when they get home from work. And people really liked it. You know, you guys had a great platform to provide education and local community information out to folks. And, you know, we took advantage of it from a young standpoint.
You don't realize that, you know, we have kind of really built a TV sports network. The City of East Chicago show was very integral in showing us what was possible, and that was you doing that. And it was like, even I was like, why are you doing this? And then next thing you know, it's like, hey, maybe we should do that.
Well, you know, Jed, I think that's the great thing about this community. It's like, you know, and I was just talking to my son about this because he was saying, Dad, you know, and I said, well, what you guys call bullying, we call it like friendship. You know, it was like, you know, if a kid had a nice shirt on, you'd be like, hey, man, how you like my shirt? It's all right. You know, that's just how we grew up. It's fun. It's tough. You know, when I grew up in my neighborhood in East Chicago, we had Puerto Ricans, we had Greeks, we had Jewish families, we had Polish families, all on our block. So, you know, the diversity was amazing. When I moved to Hessville, it wasn't that way. We were the only Hispanics on the block. We had a hard time at the beginning, and but this is the first time I faced a community that, you know, hadn't had that diversity. And my mom sat us down and said, "Listen, you know, it's not that these people are mean. It's just that they're ignorant. They have not been exposed to that." and we invited everybody on the block to eat. The next thing you know, in a couple of years, those guys were our best friends. But, the thing is, I think sometimes the world is just so angry that people don't understand things. And sometimes you got to slow down and you got to think like, how can I educate? How can I make this world a little bit a better place? And sometimes it's not that hostility, and it's not that combat to combat action. It's sitting down with somebody, sharing a meal with somebody, sharing a drink, sharing your culture. And I think that's it. Growing up in Chicago, it's been a blessing in disguise, because everywhere I go, I can sit down with somebody and find that connection.
Typical EC guy, just so you know. EC was and is the greatest place in the world, and I get it. And that's typical. I mean, I just had Kuziak on. He would have said the exact same thing.
Well, it's
but
changed now,
it has, but there was a time when East Chicago would have been the poster child for diversity.
Yeah, melting pot.
Yeah, big time. Now, you also had a relative that used to be on the air here, right? A long time ago?
Yes, my Uncle Arnold, who's actually, I found out that your wife, Alexis, is my cousin.
Yes.
And I didn't know that at all. I put a picture of my Uncle Arnold on there, and Uncle Arnold was on my grandmother's side, her brother, and Arnold Vasquez. And he had a picture I found in our basement, in my grandmother's basement. It had WJOB on it. I said, wow, that's pretty cool, and so that was decades ago.
Yeah, and he was on the air, and he and another guy, Arnold Vasquez, and I forget the other guy's name, did a Spanish language program here, and it's always kind of been close to my wife's heart, who is a Vasquez, and, when we, I think it was part of the motivation, and she knew of WJOB growing up, listening to Uncle Arnold and that kind of stuff. And then when we bought it, she had no idea that you were also related.
Right.
That was kind of a weird thing.
That was weird.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, but it's a beautiful picture. Like, it must have been out of the 60s, out of just a proud Mexican man. And you could just see him on the radio, talking really fast and being part of the heritage. I mean, that just shows. I mean, there would be the Mexican show, the Greek show, the Polish show, and then I think the Hungarian show would all run back to back.
Right.
And sometimes some people would listen to all of them, even though they didn't understand any of it.
Yeah, it was funny. Our neighbors next door, Della and Andy Demantes, and their kids are prominent coaches and teachers in the community, and their grandsons now. But we grew up calling them Yaya and Papu, and learning their cultures and doing the red Easter eggs at Easter time, and just why do you do them all red? And she would explain to us, it symbolizes the blood of Christ, and it was just really amazing, just fascinating to learn all that stuff. And then we had my aunt that lived across the street, and it was just a really great time to grow up in. And I thought I walked a mile to school, which is only 2 houses down, to St. Patrick's preschool, but it was our house. It was we had a nunnery, and then it was the church. So I thought I was walking a mile, but it was only like 2 houses down. I used to tease my friends, like, I used to walk to school when I was in preschool. Really, dude, it was like one house down.
He's Damien Rico. He typically just hosts the hospice show, and that's all you know about him. But this guy's got some stories. Adriana, whatever podcast he wants to do, we got to make it happen But what we need to do is get him out of his shell and talk about other things like EC and the Yankees and his Uncle Arnold.
I was going to say, we already have Calumet Hospice already as a podcast, so that means we have room for another one now, since that one's already set up.
Oh, I did not know that. All right, I didn't. So you guys are podcast. All right, so they can go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and get Damien in the Calumet Hospice.
Yes, Cherishing Life podcast.
Cherishing Life. Okay, that's what you would put in. You'd be able to hear. I almost called you Adrian Santos. How much of a cut low is that, huh?
You know
what? Adrian's he's gonna use that. He's gonna all sorts of things.
Work with Adrian for years. Adrian's.
Well, that's why I get you confused, because you guys kind of worked together all those years. Hey, Damien Rico is up next with the Hospice Show. Stay where you're at. I'm done for the day. I'm going to go eat breakfast and maybe go work out. And I appreciate you guys being here. I'll be here again on Thursday, God willing. Till then, I'll see you later on the Voice and Face of the Region.